I'm Mikey Evans, and this is the Ocnorml news for March 17th, 2007. Dutch crash burns 3 tons of hash. Amsterdam, the Netherlands. 3 tons of hashish went up in smoke Friday, incinerated by Dutch authorities after a van carrying the illicit cargo crashed and scattered it across the road. Detectives were hunting the van's driver and a passenger who fled the scene, leaving behind the wrecked vehicle and its $20 million cargo. It's not something you see every day, police spokesman Heike Vogelgang said, adding that police were tracing the owner of the van, saying it was most likely leased or stolen. The crash happened during the morning commute on a highway outside the town of Avanhoorn, about 20 miles north of Amsterdam, police said. Vogelgang said it was unknown whether the vehicle's occupants were injured, but were confident that we'll catch up to them sooner or later. Police said the van was heading towards Amsterdam when its driver lost control for unknown reasons. They said eyewitnesses saw the van hit a barrier, flip, and then clip another car before coming to a rest. The 2 occupants then fled the scene. Packages of hash were scattered around the area, local media reported, and Vogelgang said that hundreds more were found stacked on wooden pallets inside the van. Marijuana and hash are technically illegal in the Netherlands, but under the country's tolerance policy, police do not arrest anybody for the possession of small amounts. I believe that is 5 grams or under. It is sold openly in licensed shops, which paradoxically have no way of legally acquiring their products. Some mayors in Amsterdam and other towns in the Netherlands are trying to change this law. Federal attempt to jail pot grower shot down. Judge calls charges against Oakland man vindictive. Second trial seen as unlikely. Bobby Gelko, San Francisco Chronicle staff writer. Thursday, March 15th, 2007. The federal government's 5-year effort to throw one of the nation's most prominent advocates of marijuana into prison appears to be all but dead after a judge ruled that prosecutors had vindictively piled on charges against the Oakland man after he successfully appealed his pot-growing convictions. U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer ruled Wednesday that prosecutors had illegally retaliated against Ed Rosenthal, 62, last fall, when they added tax evasion and money laundering charges to his previous indictment for growing marijuana for medical patients. The new charges were based on old evidence, the judge said, and appeared to be aimed at punishing Rosenthal for winning his appeal and for complaining publicly that his trial had been unfair. Prosecutors' actions and statements seemed designed to make Rosenthal look like a common criminal and thus dissipate the criticism heaped upon the government after the first trial, Breyer said. That perception, he said, will discourage defendants from exercising their First Amendment rights to criticize their prosecutions and their statutory right to appeal their convictions. Breyer left the marijuana growing charges intact, but noted that prosecutors could not seek to add to the sentence the judge had imposed on Rosenthal before the convictions were overturned, 1 day in prison, which Rosenthal has already served. The ruling leaves the government with 2 options for pursuing Rosenthal, neither of them attractive. One would be to appeal the decision to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco, the same court that overturned Rosenthal's convictions last year. The other would be to proceed to the second trial next Monday in San Francisco on the earlier cultivation charges, knowing that Rosenthal could not be sent to prison even if he were convicted a second time. A spokesman for the U.S. Attorney said prosecutors were reviewing their options. Rosenthal said it was time to bring the case to an end. The court's ruling is reassuring, but my continued prosecution on these marijuana charges is still malicious, he said in a statement released by his lawyers. Joe Alford of Americans for Safe Access, an attorney for Rosenthal, said, taxpayer dollars should not be wasted on a vendetta carried out by the government. Rosenthal was one of the first growers of medical marijuana to be pursued by federal prosecutors, and the case attracted national attention, in part because the target was a prominent one. Rosenthal was High Times Magazine's Ask Ed columnist and the self-proclaimed guru of ganja, who has called for legalizing marijuana long before advocates of its medical properties gained support. He was arrested in 2002 in February on federal charges of growing hundreds of marijuana plants in a West Oakland warehouse for patients served by the Harm Reduction Center, a San Francisco medical cannabis dispensary. Breyer, the judge at Rosenthal's trial, refused to let the jury hear evidence about California's medical marijuana law or Rosenthal's status as an official in Oakland's medical marijuana program. A jury convicted Rosenthal of 3 felony cultivation charges in 2003. A majority of the jurors disavowed their verdict after learning of the excluded evidence, however, and urged leniency. Breyer sentenced Rosenthal to the 1 day in prison he had already served, rather than the usual 5-year term for the crimes, saying Rosenthal believed he was acting legally because of his position in the Oakland program. In overturning the convictions, the appeals court cited a juror's telephone call to a lawyer friend who told her she could get in trouble if she didn't follow Breyer's instructions and consider only federal law. The court also indicated that Breyer had acted within his authority in imposing a 1-day sentence, and that prosecutors could not win a longer term for the same charges. The new indictment, issued by a federal grand jury in October, included the previous marijuana charges along with money laundering. 4 transactions totaling $1,850 that Rosenthal was accused of structuring to hide marijuana proceeds from the government, and 5 counts of filing false tax returns that omitted his marijuana income. The non-marijuana charges were punishable by up to 20 years in prison, although Rosenthal's attorney said federal guidelines would call for a sentence of less than 2 years. Assistant U.S. Attorney George Bevin, the chief prosecutor, told Breyer that the government would not seek additional penalties or prison time on the marijuana counts, but was committed to doing the retrial and seeing the case to a conclusion. At a hearing in October, Bevin noted Rosenthal's post-verdict complaint that he hadn't gotten a fair trial because jurors hadn't heard the full story. So I'm saying, this time around, he wants the financial side reflected. Fine, let's air this thing out, Bevin said. Let's have the whole conduct before the jury. Tax, money laundering, marijuana. In Wednesday's ruling, Breyer commended Bevin for his candor, but said his comments only confirmed the appearance of vindictiveness. Prosecutors had Rosenthal's tax records and financial records before his first trial, but apparently decided to pursue them only after being criticized by Rosenthal and his supporters and losing in appellate court, Breyer said. He said the U.S. Supreme Court has consistently ruled for more than 30 years that charges or potential punishment can't be increased after a successful defense appeal unless prosecutors come up with new evidence to justify harsher treatment. We'll be right back after this message.
Hi, this is Willie Nelson for Ocnorml. For 30 years, Ocnorml has provided a voice for the millions of Americans who smoke marijuana responsibly. Thousands of sick and dying patients find marijuana effective as a medicine, including cancer, MS, and AIDS patients. 9 states have legalized its use. To learn how you can help, contact Ocnorml at www.norml.org or call toll-free at 888-67-NORML.
March 2nd, 2007. Associated Press, Tony Custard reported. An East Anglian hemp producer believes it can help Chancellor Brown achieve his dream of zero-carbon housing by 2016 and has invested £4 million in the world's largest hemp-producing factory to prove it. Tiny Hempcore Limited, based in Bishop Stortford, Herts and Malden, Essex, had decided to build a facility in East Anglia to ramp up its production of hemp fiber for conversion into a revolutionary building material that has phenomenal energy-saving properties. The possibilities for house building are so exciting that Hempcore has been asked to take its innovation worldwide. Leading players from Africa have already begun talks. Although it employs just 17 people, Hempcore is UK's largest grower and processor of hemp. It contracts British farmers to grow around 3,000 hectares of industrial hemp, a plant from the cannabis family with a virtually zero drug content. Hemp was once grown widely across the UK, produced fiber for the sails and rigging of the naval fleet. Now it has been adapted for the huge range of new industrial applications. The fiber and core products are already sold into Europe's paper, automotive, and insulation industries, said boss Mike Duckett, but the prospects for house building are incredibly exciting. We believe we can help the government achieve its objective of zero-carbon housing by 2016, he said. Suffolk brewer Adams recently pioneered the use of Hempcore's material to build a new warehouse in Southwold. The success that project has, and the excited reaction it has caused in the construction industry, persuaded Hempcorp to launch a new material on a much grander scale. The hemp-based material is very thermally efficient and during the growing phase takes CO2 out of the atmosphere. No agrochemicals are used in the growing process, making the ultimate natural fiber. Duckett adds, "We have formed a four-way collaboration to drive this initiative, backed by major players such as Castle Cement, Lime Technology, and Leyhoust in Belgium. They are as excited as we are. There is no way we will be able to keep the lid on this. Our turnover will shoot from 1 million pounds to a projected 25 million pounds, and we will have to go international, judging by the reaction from Africa. It won't mean massive addition to headcount for us locally, but the implications for house building globally, not to mention the planet, are immense." In the automotive sector, BMW is taking the Hempcorp fibers to make door panels of its 5 Series. There is also increasing interest from global industries in using hemp fibers in plastic reinforcement.
Hi, this is Willie Nelson for Ocnorml. For 30 years, Ocnorml has provided a voice for the millions of Americans who smoke marijuana responsibly. In Canada, medicinal use of marijuana is already legal. Now the Canadian government has announced that they will soon stop arresting marijuana smokers altogether. We can learn much from our neighbors to the north. To learn how you can help, contact Ocnorml at www.norml.org.
March 8th, Detroit, Michigan. Michigan Democrats back medical marijuana resolution. Patients who use cannabis medicinally under a doctor's supervision should not be subject to criminal penalties, according to a recent resolution unanimously adopted by the delegates of Michigan's Democratic Party at the organization's 2007 state convention in Detroit. Approximately 1,500 delegates backed the resolution, which was introduced by Benzie County Ocnorml and Michigan Ocnorml. There were no dissenting voices whatsoever at the convention, Michigan Ocnorml Executive Director Tim Beck said in an interview on Monday's edition of the Ocnorml Audio Stash. Support for the medical marijuana is now an official part of the Michigan Democratic Party platform. Patients who use cannabis with a doctor's recommendation should not be subject to criminal sanctions, the resolution states. It adds, licensed medical doctors should not be criminally punished for recommending the medical use of marijuana to seriously ill patients. The unanimous endorsement comes just days after voters in Flint passed a municipal measure shielding medicinal cannabis patients from local prosecution. Flint is the 5th Michigan city since 2004 to pass medical marijuana legislation. Legislation to enact statewide protections on the possession and use of medicinal marijuana is pending before the Michigan House Judiciary Committee. Hawaii. State legalization of pot could yield $33 million annually. West Oahu, March 8th. Taxing and regulating cannabis in Hawaii in a manner similar to alcohol could yield the state approximately $33 million in annual revenues and cost savings, according to an economic analysis released last week by the University of Hawaii. The study found that regulating cannabis could create annual tax revenues of up to $23 million. The study added that prosecuting and enforcing state laws cost taxpayers approximately $10 million per year. Of this total, more than 40% is spent by state and county law enforcement solely to enforce marijuana possession laws. Those who favor legalization argue that policies like those involved in regulation of alcohol and tobacco are far more effective in limiting the individual and social costs involved, the study states. Taxation is significantly cheaper in terms of enforcement and outcomes than outlawing substances. The study also reports that law enforcement efforts to restrict Hawaii's pot supply have been ineffective because the black market price of marijuana per ounce has fallen over the last decade, indicating a marked increase in supply and consumption. A previous nationwide analysis of marijuana policy by Boston University economist Jeffrey Myron reported that enforcing state and federal pot laws cost taxpayers an estimated $7.7 billion annually. Minorities overrepresented in pot arrests, study says. New York, New York. African Americans and Hispanics in New York City are far more likely to be arrested and receive a conviction for minor marijuana offenses than are white citizens, according to statistical data to be published in the Journal of Criminology and Public Policy. Investigators at New York City's National Development Research Institute, an independent think tank specializing in substance abuse issues, analyzed local marijuana arrest data from 1980 to 2006. Authors reported that 85% of the defendants arrested in New York City for the crime of possessing marijuana in the 5th degree, smoking pot in public, were either African American or Hispanic. African Americans and Hispanics together comprise approximately half the city's population. Investigators also reported that African Americans were 2.66 times more likely than whites to be detained before arraignment, while Hispanics were nearly twice as likely. In addition, both groups were twice as likely as whites to be convicted on pot charges. Compared to Caucasians, African Americans were 4 times as likely and Hispanics were 3 times as likely to receive additional jail time. In light of these disparities, we recommend that the NYPD consider scaling back the enforcement of smoking marijuana in public view, and that legislatures consider making smoking marijuana in public a violation and not a misdemeanor, authors concluded. Although minor marijuana possession offenses are punishable by a civil citation under state law, the possession or use of cannabis in a public place is classified as a criminal misdemeanor. Citywide arrests for public smoking rose from less than 1,000 in 1990 to more than 51,000 in 2000. In 2006, New York City police arrested approximately 32,000 citizens for the use of cannabis in public, 87% who were either African American or Hispanic. A previous analysis of marijuana arrest data by the Ocnorml Foundation reported nationwide racial disparities in marijuana law enforcement, finding that although fewer than 12% of all self-reported pot smokers were African American, they comprised 23% of all marijuana possession arrests. We'll be right back after this message.
Get up, get up, get up, get up, go! Get up, go!
Got stickers?
Oakland County Ocnorml does not endorse the random stickering of other people's property, both public and private. All rights reserved.
This is 2007, and the United States, with less than 5% of the world's total population, still has almost 25% of the world's prison population. This is not the land of the free. What are you going to do? When are you going to get up and stand up? Call your representatives. If you're in Canada, write to your MP. Write to your PM. Support the NDP. Support the Green Party in Canada. Support Dennis Kucinich in America. Support Representative Ron Paul, Republican, who supports industrial hemp. There's now 15 states supporting industrial hemp in the United States. New Mexico is poised to become the 12th state to have medical marijuana in the United States. Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois, are we far behind? Let's vote for freedom. Mikey Evans, Oakland County Ocnorml. Thank you.
I've got the munches, 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 the crunchy bunches, that munchy feeling tonight. I've got the munches, 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 the crunchy munches, that munchy feeling tonight. And my fridge is half empty, upshot eyes fill my head. If I eat these smoked oysters, I just might end up dead.